The airplane was quiet, but inside the cabin, tension floated like heavy air. Passengers settled into their seats, some scrolling on phones, others closing their eyes. In the first-class section, a man sat alone by the window. His name was Daniel. He was 45, with tired eyes and a face shaped by years of silent struggle. He wore simple clothes, nothing fancy, even though the seat he sat in was expensive. This ticket had cost him almost all his savings. But today was not about comfort. It was about closure. Daniel held an old photograph in his hand. It showed a tiny baby wrapped in a white hospital blanket. The edges of the photo were worn, folded many times. His thumb slowly moved over the picture, as if touching the child's face could bring her back. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. Today marked 25 years since he had last seen his daughter. 25 years since fate had taken her away from him. As Daniel opened his eyes, movement near the aisle caught his attention. A young pregnant woman was walking slowly down the narrow path between seats. One hand held her lower back, the other gripped the seat handles for balance. Her face showed pain and fear, but she tried to stay calm. The flight attendants were busy, and most passengers looked away, pretending not to notice. Daniel's heart skipped. A strange feeling rose inside him, sharp and sudden. He could not explain it. He watched as the woman paused, breathing hard, her legs shaking. No one stood up. No one offered help. Without thinking, Daniel unbuckled his seatbelt and stood. His body moved before his mind could stop it. "Please," he said softly to her, "take my seat." The woman looked up, surprised. "Sir, this is first class," she said. "I don't want to trouble you." Daniel shook his head. "You are not troubling me. Please sit. You need it more than I do." The flight attendant hesitated but then nodded. The woman slowly sat down, relief washing over her face. Her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know how much this means to me." Daniel gave a small smile. "It's okay," he replied, though his chest felt tight. As he moved to the economy seat behind, a deep ache settled in his heart. Giving up this seat felt bigger than money. It felt like something meant to happen. As the plane prepared for takeoff, Daniel glanced back at the woman. She rested her hands on her belly, whispering something softly, maybe to her unborn child. There was something about her smile, her eyes, that felt familiar. Too familiar. Daniel turned away, shaking his head. "It's just your imagination," he told himself. The engines roared, and the plane lifted into the sky. As clouds passed by the window, Daniel's thoughts drifted into the past. Years ago, Daniel had been a young father full of hope. His wife had been pressured by her wealthy family. They believed Daniel was not good enough. One night, while Daniel was at work, they took the baby away. By the time he returned, the house was empty. No note, no goodbye, just silence. Daniel searched everywhere. Hospitals, offices, lawyers. But money spoke louder than love. Slowly, the doors closed. People stopped helping. And one day, he was told to move on. But Daniel never did. Back in the present, turbulence shook the plane. The pregnant woman gasped softly, gripping the armrest. Daniel stood up again without realizing it. He looked toward her, concern written all over his face. She noticed him watching. Their eyes met for a second. Something passed between them. Confusion, recognition, or maybe just kindness. She smiled weakly. Daniel nodded, then sat back down. Neither of them knew it yet, but fate had already begun its work. The man who gave up his seat thought he was just being kind. The woman who accepted it believed she had met a stranger. Both were wrong. And the truth, waiting quietly in the clouds, was about to change their lives forever. Daniel could not sleep after the plane reached its steady height. The hum of the engine filled the cabin, but his mind was louder. His thoughts kept returning to the pregnant woman in first class. He told himself it was only kindness, nothing more. Still, his chest felt heavy, as if an old door inside him had opened without warning. He closed his eyes and memories rushed in. 25 years ago, Daniel had been a different man. He was younger, hopeful, and deeply in love with his newborn daughter. He remembered the day she was born. The hospital room smelled of clean sheets and fear. When the nurse placed the baby in his arms, his hands trembled. She was so small, yet her grip on his finger was strong. In that moment, Daniel promised he would protect her forever. But life did not ask for his permission. His wife came from a powerful family. They believed Daniel was a mistake in her life. They wanted control, not love. Arguments filled the house. Cold words replaced warm smiles. Daniel worked long hours, trying to prove his worth, but it was never enough. One evening, he returned home to silence. The baby's crib was empty. His wife was gone. At first, he thought it was temporary, but hours turned into days, and days into years. Phone calls went unanswered. Lawyers refused to help. He was told to forget, to move on, to start over. Daniel never did. He sold his car, his furniture, even his wedding ring, to search for his child. Every small clue became hope. Every closed door became pain. Slowly, his world became smaller, quieter, lonelier. In the end, all he had left was an old photo and a tiny hospital bracelet with a faded name written on it. Back on the plane, Daniel opened his eyes. The cabin lights were dim now. Most passengers were asleep. He glanced toward first class again. The pregnant woman was awake, staring at the seat in front of her. Her face looked calm, but her eyes were distant, lost in thought. Daniel wondered where she was going. Was she afraid? Was someone waiting for her? He felt a sudden urge to protect her, an urge that confused him. He had felt that feeling only once before in his life. Turbulence shook the plane again, stronger this time. The woman winced, pressing her hand to her belly. Daniel stood up quickly. A flight attendant moved toward her, but Daniel reached first. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, forcing a smile. "Just a little pain. It will pass." Daniel hesitated, then returned to his seat. His heart raced. Something was wrong. Not with the flight, but with him. His instincts were screaming, but his mind refused to listen. The woman took a deep breath and whispered softly, "Be strong, my little one." The words hit Daniel like a wave. His throat tightened. He remembered saying the same words long ago, in a dark room, holding a crying baby. He turned his face toward the window, blinking away sudden tears. He did not understand why this stranger was waking memories he had buried so deep. Minutes passed. The plane felt calm again, but inside Daniel, a storm had started. He pressed his hand over his chest, feeling his heart pound. Somewhere between the clouds and the past, fate was moving closer. Daniel did not know it yet, but this journey was not about travel. It was about reunion. And the past he never escaped was sitting just a few rows ahead, breathing the same air, sharing the same sky, waiting for the truth to rise. The woman sat quietly in the wide first-class seat, her hands resting on her belly as the plane moved smoothly through the sky. Her name was Lily. She had learned to stay calm in difficult moments, because life had never been gentle with her. From a young age, she understood how to survive alone. Lily had no memories of her parents. She grew up moving from one foster home to another, carrying her small bag and big questions wherever she went. Every time she asked about her family, the answers were unclear. Some said her parents could not care for her. Others said it was better not to know. Over time, Lily stopped asking, but the empty space inside her heart never filled. As she grew older, Lily became strong and independent. She worked hard, saved money, and learned not to depend on anyone. Still, at night, she often wondered who she looked like, whose smile she had, and whether someone out there remembered her birthday. Those thoughts returned now as she stared ahead, listening to the low sound of the engines. Her pregnancy had not been easy. The father of her child had promised support, then disappeared when things became real. Once again, Lily found herself alone. She decided to move to a new city, hoping for a fresh start. This flight was not just travel. It was a step into an unknown future. When the man gave her his seat, Lily felt shocked. People rarely did kind things without reason. His voice was calm, his eyes sincere. Something about him made her feel safe, even though she had never seen him before. She kept telling herself it was just gratitude, but her heart felt strangely warm. She slowly turned her head and looked back toward the economy section. The man sat upright, hands folded, eyes lowered. He looked tired, but gentle. Lily noticed his posture, the way he sat like someone used to carrying heavy thoughts. For a brief moment, she felt like she was looking at someone familiar, someone from a forgotten dream. Lily touched her belly and smiled softly. "We are okay," she whispered to her unborn child. "Someone kind helped us today." Another wave of light turbulence passed. Lily closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Suddenly, a memory she never understood flashed in her mind. A hospital room, bright lights, a man's voice saying her name softly. She had always believed it was imagination, a dream created by loneliness. She opened her eyes quickly, her heart beating faster. Why now? Why on this plane? Lily glanced back again. The man was looking at the floor, lost in thought. She noticed a small bracelet peeking from his pocket, old and worn. Something about it made her chest tighten. She felt an urge to speak, to ask him something, though she did not know what. The flight attendant announced that they would be landing in a few hours. Lily felt nervous. She realized she did not want this moment to end. This strange connection, this feeling of being protected, scared her more than being alone. She turned slightly in her seat and spoke softly. "Sir," she said. Daniel looked up, surprised. "Thank you again," Lily continued. "I have been traveling alone for a long time. What you did, it mattered." Daniel nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "we help others without knowing why." Their eyes met again. This time, neither looked away. The plane continued its journey, carrying two lives shaped by loss, moving closer to a truth neither was ready to face yet. Lily leaned back and felt the seat vibrate gently beneath her. She wondered if destiny could truly guide people without their knowing. Outside the window, the sky stretched wide and endless, like a promise waiting to be understood. She placed her hand over her heart, feeling a quiet pull she could not name. Somewhere deep inside, a truth was waking. It was patient, silent, and powerful. As minutes passed, the distance between past and present slowly disappeared, leaving only questions, hope, and a future about to unfold. Neither of them knew how close they were to answers finally. The plane lights slowly brightened as the captain announced a change in weather ahead. The seatbelt sign turned on, and a quiet tension returned to the cabin. Daniel felt it in his chest before the plane even shook. He looked toward Lily again, unable to stop himself. She had one hand on her belly and the other gripping the armrest. The turbulence came suddenly. The plane dropped slightly, then steadied. Lily gasped, a sharp breath escaping her lips. Pain crossed her face, quick but clear. Daniel stood up at once. "Please sit, sir," a flight attendant said, but Daniel barely heard her. He moved closer, lowering his voice so only Lily could hear. "Are you feeling pain again?" he asked. Lily nodded, trying to stay calm. "It comes and goes," she said. "The doctor said it can happen." Daniel swallowed. "If you need anything, anything at all, tell me." She looked at him, surprised by the care in his tone. "Thank you," she said softly. "You are very kind." They sat in silence as the plane continued forward. When the shaking stopped, Lily relaxed slightly. Daniel returned to his seat, but his heart refused to slow down. Every instinct inside him stayed alert, focused on her. Minutes passed. The cabin grew quiet again. Lily shifted in her seat, then turned toward Daniel. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course," Daniel replied. "Why did you give up your seat?" Lily asked. "It was very expensive. Most people would not do that." Daniel paused. He had asked himself the same question. "I don't really know," he said honestly. "It just felt right." Lily studied his face. "You remind me of someone," she said without thinking. Daniel's breath caught. "Who?" he asked carefully. She shook her head. "I don't know. That's the strange part." Another silence followed, heavier than before. Daniel felt sweat on his palms. His mind raced through memories he had tried to lock away. He remembered a nurse calling his daughter's name. He remembered her tiny fingers wrapping around his thumb. His chest tightened. "What is your name?" he asked suddenly. "Lily," she replied. "And yours?" "Daniel." The sound of her name echoed inside him. "Lily." He whispered it under his breath, as if testing its weight. His hands began to tremble. He folded them together, hoping she would not notice. "Where were you born?" Daniel asked, his voice low. Lily frowned slightly. "I was told I was born in a small hospital outside the city," she said. "I don't know much more than that." Daniel's heart began to pound. That hospital. The memory came back clear and sharp. He felt dizzy. "And your birthday?" he asked, unable to stop himself now. Lily answered. The world seemed to tilt. Daniel leaned back, staring at the ceiling. That date had lived in his heart for 25 years. He repeated it every year, alone, like a prayer. Lily noticed his reaction. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yes," he said quickly. "Just tired." But he was lying. Fear rushed through him, mixed with hope so strong it hurt. He wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but fear held him back. What if he was wrong? What if he broke something fragile? Lily watched him closely. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said gently. Daniel forced a small smile. Sometimes the past finds us when we least expect it. The captain announced they would be landing soon. Lily felt a strange sadness. She did not want this conversation to end. She did not understand why. As the plane began its descent, Daniel pressed his hand against his chest. His heart knew the truth before his mind could accept it. Rows of years, pain, and silence stood between him and the words he wanted to say. Just a few rows ahead sat the answer to every prayer he had ever whispered. And in moments, fate would no longer stay quiet. The plane touched down smoothly, but Daniel felt as if his world was shaking apart. Passengers clapped softly, gathered their bags, and stood in the aisle. Daniel stayed seated, frozen, watching Lily rise slowly from her seat. She held her belly, breathing carefully, her face pale but determined. As she stepped into the aisle, pain suddenly hit her hard. Lily cried out and nearly fell. Daniel rushed forward and caught her before she collapsed. His arms wrapped around her without hesitation, holding her steady. "I think something is wrong," Lily whispered, fear filling her eyes. A flight attendant called for help, and moments later, airport medical staff arrived with a wheelchair. Lily was placed carefully into it. Daniel stayed close, his hand never leaving her shoulder. "Are you family?" a nurse asked. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. The word felt too big, too dangerous. "I'm with her," he said instead. They rushed through the airport to a nearby hospital. The bright lights and sharp smells pulled Daniel back into the past. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself forward. He could not leave now. Not again. At the hospital, Lily was taken into an examination room. Daniel waited outside, pacing the floor. His heart beat so hard it hurt. Every memory he had buried was now awake. The date, the hospital, the name. After what felt like hours, a nurse stepped out. "We need some information," she said. "Medical history, family details." Daniel swallowed. "She doesn't know her family," he said quietly. The nurse nodded and returned inside. Daniel sat down, his head in his hands. Without thinking, he pulled the old bracelet from his pocket. The thin band looked fragile, almost unreal under the bright lights. He rubbed his thumb over the faded letters. A few minutes later, another nurse noticed the bracelet. She stopped, her eyes widening. "Where did you get that?" she asked sharply. Daniel looked up, confused. "It belonged to my daughter," he said. "She was taken from me many years ago." The nurse's face changed. She disappeared into the room, returning quickly with a doctor. "We need to talk," the doctor said. Inside the room, Lily lay on the bed, tears in her eyes, holding her stomach. When she saw Daniel, relief washed over her face. "I'm scared," she said. Daniel moved closer. "You're not alone," he said softly. The doctor cleared his throat. "There are some records," he began. "A bracelet number, a birth date. They match." Lily looked between them, confused. "Match what?" she asked. Daniel's hands shook. He felt the room spin. "They match my daughter," he said, his voice breaking. Silence filled the room. Lily stared at him, her breathing uneven. "That's not possible," she whispered. "I don't have a father." Tears rolled down Daniel's face. "I've been looking for you my whole life," he said. "I never stopped." The doctor suggested a DNA test. Both agreed, too overwhelmed to speak. Hours passed in heavy silence. Daniel sat beside Lily, saying nothing, afraid that words might break the fragile moment. Finally, the doctor returned with the results. He did not smile. He did not hesitate. "It's a match," he said. "You are father and daughter." Lily let out a sob, covering her face. Daniel dropped to his knees beside her bed, crying openly for the first time in decades. He reached for her hand, unsure if she would pull away. She didn't. She squeezed his hand tightly. "You gave me your seat," she cried. "You helped me without knowing who I was." Daniel looked at her through tears. "A father's heart remembers," he said. The room was quiet except for soft hospital sounds and Lily's broken breathing. Daniel stayed on his knees, still holding her hand, afraid that if he let go, the truth might disappear. His whole life had led to this moment, yet he felt unprepared for it. Lily slowly lifted her face. Her eyes were red, filled with confusion, pain, and something else she had never felt before. Belonging. "All my life," she said softly. "I thought no one wanted me." Daniel stood up and sat beside her. "That was never true," he said. "I searched for you every day. Even when I had nothing left, I still had hope." Lily shook her head, tears falling again. Why didn't you find me sooner? Daniel closed his eyes. Because money and power stood in the way, he answered honestly. But love never stopped trying. For a long moment, neither spoke. Years of silence pressed between them. Then Lily placed Daniel's hand on her belly. You are going to be a grandfather, she said quietly. Daniel's breath caught. He laughed and cried at the same time. I missed your whole life, he said. But I don't want to miss one more moment. Lily nodded. Then don't, she said. Stay. That single word healed something deep inside him. The doctor returned with good news. Lily and the baby were safe. She only needed rest and observation. The storm had passed. What remained was truth. Later that night, Daniel sat beside Lily's bed. She slept peacefully, one hand resting on her belly, the other still holding his. He watched her chest rise and fall, memorizing every detail. Her face, her hair, her smile. He saw himself in her, and he saw her mother too. He whispered softly, I'm here now. Morning light entered the room. Lily slowly woke and looked at him, as if afraid he might not be real. When she saw he was still there, she smiled. I had a dream, she said. You were holding me when I was a baby. Daniel's eyes filled again. That was real, he said. Over the next few days, they talked. About her childhood, about his search, about pain, mistakes, and forgiveness. Some answers were hard. Some questions had no answers. But they listened, and that was enough. When Lily was released from the hospital, Daniel walked beside her, one step at a time. Outside, the world moved like nothing had changed. But for them, everything had. Weeks later, Lily gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Daniel stood in the room, his heart full beyond words. 3 generations connected by love, loss, and destiny. As Daniel held his grandson, he understood something clearly for the first time. That first-class seat was never about comfort. It was about choice. A small act of kindness opened a door that fate had been waiting behind for 25 years. Lily looked at Daniel and smiled. If you had not stood up that day, she said, we might have passed each other forever. Daniel shook his head gently. Some bonds are stronger than time, he replied. They always find their way back. And in that quiet room, surrounded by new life, Daniel finally felt at peace.